Welcome to the George C. Marshall Center's Strategically Speaking. This podcast series explores the future of NATO in an era of global change. Join us as experts shed light on the challenges and evolution of the Atlantic Alliance. Stay tuned for insightful discussions on international security and NATO's path forward.
A warm welcome to the Marshall Center's podcast series on NATO at 75, the future of the Atlantic Alliance in tumultuous times. I am Fritz Rademacher, Professor of International Security. We are hosting today His Excellency Ambassador Nicolay Milkov, the permanent representative of the Republic of Bulgaria to NATO, who is joining us from the Bulgarian delegation at NATO headquarters in Brussels. We are recording this session on 4 October 2024. Ambassador, thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. It is such a privilege to have you as our podcast guest today, just a few days after the new Secretary General, Mark Rutte, has taken up his position, and only a few weeks after the important meeting of NATO heads of state and government held in Washington, D.C. in July. Allow me, Ambassador, to take a brief moment to introduce you to our audience. Ambassador Milkov has had a very distinguished career spanning 4 decades. He has held senior positions at the Ministries of Defense and Foreign Affairs in Bulgaria, including as permanent secretary in the Ministry of Defense and several ambassadorial postings in Romania, Canada, and France, amongst other important positions. He's a former deputy foreign minister and served as Minister of Foreign Affairs from August 2022 until May 2023, when he assumed his current post as the Bulgarian permanent representative. A very rich experience indeed, and perhaps a good preparation for your current position. Again, Ambassador, thank you so very much for being with us. I have already alluded to the Washington Summit meeting in July. Can you share with us your impressions from the meetings and what, in your view, made it so special, and what you see with some hindsight now as the main achievements?
Well, thank you, Professor, once again for inviting me to this interview. I'm really very glad to have the opportunity to contribute to your noble cause at the center. NATO's Washington Summit has unquestionably achieved transparent, tangible, and measurable results through the allies' synchronized policies and joint efforts. As most prominent deliverables for the Bulgarian government could be underlined the deterrence and defense, especially on NATO's eastern flank and the Black Sea security. Also, the unwavering support to Ukraine that remains our highest priority. But I would like to mention also deepening NATO's partnerships and the fight against the asymmetric, hybrid, and malign threats through a 360-degree approach. NATO's commitment to further strengthening the deterrence and defense, this is our main and first topic, is crucial to Bulgaria and has been reaffirmed at the summit, including through the engagement of enhancing our integrated air and missile defense, the so-called IMD, and updating the NATO's IMD policy. Russia will remain the most significant threat in the years to come, and this is mentioned in our documents. We need to prepare for a potentially long confrontation by strengthening, of course, first deterrence and defense and enhancing resilience to Russia's malign influence, including in the regions of strategic importance, the Black Sea and the Western Balkans, must be mentioned here. The strategic importance of the Western Balkans and the Black Sea regions for the alliance was underlined in the summit declaration, enhancing the political dialogue and the practical cooperation with the Western Balkan countries is an important part of our fight against malign influence, disinformation, hybrid and cyber threats posed by state and non-state actors. We encourage implementing domestic reforms in these countries and building on democratic values and the rule of law. In this regard, we put great significance on the forthcoming analysis of the malicious hybrid actions of various factors in the Western Balkans region and their impact on security. That was a tasking that has been made to identify and to analyze the malign influence in the Western Balkans at the Washington summit and later on. The developments in the Black Sea set the need to reassess NATO approach at strategic level, and this is very important. The strategic importance of the Black Sea region has been always recognized and found its place into NATO strategic concept, but now we need to put that recognition into action and to further operationalize, by larger NATO engagement and presence in the Black Sea. This is a part of the area of responsibility of SECURE, and we must provide SECURE with all the instruments that he needs to run security problems and to tackle all the situations that may arise in this region. This is not seen so far regarding the Black Sea. So this is an area of further cooperation among allies to bring more NATO in the Black Sea, because the security is not just a task for the three riverine countries. This is clear, and this is a very important specific point that I would like to raise on behalf of Bulgaria and from our perspective. We have already in the Black Sea area some achievements. Bulgaria participates in the Black Sea mine countermeasures that have been established, an initiative that has been established by Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey, and we remain committed to enhancing the defense capabilities, upholding security and stability in the whole Black Sea region, but to that end, we really need more NATO. Regarding Ukraine, Bulgaria is a country that is very steadfast in its support to advancing Ukraine's integration with NATO and on its irreversible path towards full-fledged membership. Bulgaria is currently working on signing a security agreement with Ukraine. We view the establishing of NATO security assistance and training, the NSETU mission, so-called NSETU mission, and education center in Poland, the JTEC, as crucial. These two initiatives are crucial and in time to coordinate the provision on military equipment and training in Ukraine. We put also great emphasis on the pledge of long-term security assistance to Ukraine with 40 billion euros in 2025. All these steps are crucial towards deterrence and defense against Russian aggression and until Ukraine prevails over it. Bulgaria is satisfied that the allies endorse the comprehensive assistance package to long-term projects for recovery and reconstruction, the institutional transformation and transition towards NATO interoperability. This is very important because Ukraine must be able in foreseeable future to defend itself also from future aggressions, not just to prevail now. As concluded also in the summit declaration, Bulgaria sees the hybrid and asymmetric threats as real and endangering the Euro-Atlantic security. In line with NATO's positions, Bulgaria appreciates and views as highly valuable the partnership in the Indo-Pacific and the Global South, as well as with the European Union at first place, of course, because we are very much like-minded with the European Union, and there are some minor, I would say, but long-standing obstacles to move further on this cooperation. In line with NATO's position, Bulgaria appreciates and views as highly valuable all these partnerships. They are rooted in shared values and common security interests. They are also beneficial to all involved and contribute to improved security for the broader international community. We must fight the Russian narrative in the south. This is crucial at that point, and winning hearts and minds with very much help us on the path of implementing our core priorities, deterrence and defense, countering the Russia's malign influence. Also, one more thing, the terrorism challenges that are posed by terrorists and terrorist organizations, and this is very topical from the perspective of the situation in the Middle East now. These terrorist organizations are expanding their reach and increasingly become more advanced. These developments require our continuous vigilance and timely actions to counter, deter, defend, and to respond to this threat. In this regard, Bulgaria supports the engagement with partners and international organizations to enhance and to develop counter-terrorist capabilities and new technologies to tackle threats emanating from the terrorism.
Thank you very much indeed for this comprehensive assessment. And if you allow me, I will come back to quite a number of the issues that you have mentioned already, perhaps with a view to go into some more detail. Let me start with deterrence and defense, actually. When you look back a decade or so, how do you assess the evolution that NATO went through in terms of deterrence and defense?
NATO is a defensive alliance whose members are committed to safeguarding the values of the freedom and the security of each other against all threats. This is an organization meant to protect and to prevent wars and not to wage wars, and this is very important. So deterrence and defense, they are our core tasks. Allies are significantly strengthening the deterrence and defense of the alliance as the backbone to our Article 5 common commitment to defend each other. And in the last decade, I think that a lot has been done in this respect, starting from the Wales pledge for 2% of our national budgets to our days now, nowadays when we have already 23 allies that implemented this commitment taken in Wales. Of course, we would like to see this commitment fully implemented by all of us in order to make the alliance really fit to tackle to all these challenges that are ahead of us. And now we we agree that this is the 2% are not the ceiling, but just the beginning, because the defense expenses will become obviously higher. NATO's deterrence and defense posture is based on an appropriate mix of nuclear, conventional, and missile defense capabilities, complemented by space and cyber capabilities. That means in all 5 domains. Deterrence is a core element of NATO's overall strategy, preventing conflict and war, protecting allies, maintaining freedom of decision and of action, supporting sovereignty and upholding the principle and the values we stand for. These are individual liberty, democracy, human rights, and rule of law, of course. So NATO has increased its military presence in the eastern part. Yes, this is very important for Bulgaria. This is a direct response of Russia's behavior. This is not an aggressiveness by NATO. NATO allies don't want to wage wars. I mean, I would like to repeat this one more time, because Sweden and Finland gave up with their century-long neutrality not to wage wars, but to be protected and to prevent wars to happen. So we have now also a readiness action plan launched at the Wales Summit in 2014, and that was a major drive for change in the alliance deterrence and defense posture. This action plan included assurance measures for NATO allies in Central and Eastern Europe to reassure our populations, to deter potential aggression and reinforce our defense. Building on that plan, NATO heads of state and government approved a strengthened deterrence and defense posture at the Warsaw Summit later on in July 2016, yes. It provided the alliance with a broad range of options to be able to respond to any threats from wherever they arise and to protect the alliance territory, population, airspace, and sea lines of communications, including, of course, the critical underwater infrastructure that becomes more and more topical these days. Allied actions continued by establishing an enhanced forward presence. Since 2017, 4 NATO multinational battle groups have been deployed in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. Additional measures, such as tailored forward presence, that is an evolution, were taken to reinforce security in the southeastern region of our alliance. After the Russian aggression against Ukraine, many things have changed, of course. It posed the gravest threat to Euro-Atlantic security in decades, shattering the peace in Europe and reinforcing the need for NATO to ensure that its deterrence and defense posture remains credible and very efficient. In March, if I'm not wrong, 24th of March 2022, an extraordinary summit, NATO leaders agreed to deploy 4 battalion battle groups more, and this is in Bulgaria, Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia, in addition to the 4 battle groups that have been already present in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. At the 2022 Madrid summit, NATO set a new baseline for its deterrence and defense posture in line with its 360-degree approach across the land, air, maritime, cyber, and space domains. The domains became 5 instead of 3, as it was previously, according to our documents. So in Madrid also, most important deliverable was that the NATO leaders approved a new strategic concept that describes the security environment that the alliance is facing. And the strategic concept also identifies NATO's core tasks for the years to come. But I must say that the developments are so fast that we see really some need to test the limits of the strategic concept. I would not say to make amendments or to introduce new strategic concept, but we are at the limit of some provisions of this concept now. The strategic concept, of course, all we know, states that Russia is the most significant and direct threat to allies' security and to the peace and stability in the whole Euro-Atlantic area. Allies also committed at Madrid to deploy additional robust in-place combat-ready forces to NATO's eastern flank to be scaled up from existing battalion-sized battle groups to brigade-sized units, where and when required, and to ensure these forces will be underpinned by credible, rapidly available reinforcements if it is needed to deal with the prepositioned equipment and enhanced command and control, of course. To that end, we must modernize our infrastructure, especially for Bulgaria. This is a problem, and for the South as a whole, because we don't have the infrastructure that is in the North. We saw that the Netherlands, Germany, and Poland signed an agreement for military mobility, but it is easier for them to proceed. We have to build infrastructure before starting, to fill the warehouses before starting also the pipelines and everything to function. Another very important point that is changing very much after Wales and for the whole decades that we have already behind. This is enhancing resilience in the whole societies, not just in the military field. This is really very much needed for us to be prepared for responding, recovering also from crisis, and to adapt to the full range of threats that may occur and hazards. This became an integral part of NATO's deterrence and defense posture. The resilience is very important. There is a committee operating here at headquarters, the Resilience Committee, that is very important, and we are active participants in this. Exercises and training remain an integral part also of NATO's deterrence and defense posture, since military training is an essential requirement to maintain the alliance's readiness level and improve the interoperability among allies, of course. So this is here I would like one more time to mention the situation in the Black Sea, the limitations that we have regarding the presence of external powers in the maritime domain are to some extent preventing us from to achieve interoperability with allies in the maritime domain, because we are not able to implement all the necessary training and to become really interoperable with the allies. I would like to say that also NATO's adaptation efforts continue, and they will continue in all domains and in the areas such as civil preparedness and countering hybrid threats, including in cooperation with the European Union. Relations with the EU include increased cooperation as well as complementary and interoperable capability development to avoid, of course, duplication and contribute to transatlantic burden sharing. That is very important. About the hybrid threats and the propaganda, it is important that each and every country will develop its own capabilities and to address the specific threats that are posed by the Russian activities, because each and every country faces different approaches by Russia. For instance, in our countries on the eastern flank, including Bulgaria, it is very common these days to feed the nostalgia to the previous regime. Of course, this approach could not be applied to Canada or to the Netherlands, of course. They have a different history and different past. But for Bulgaria, this is really important how to tackle this. And I would like to say that here, the regular information about NATO activities and so on, it doesn't work much. I mean, we have to tackle all the bites that are at the disposal of the Russians. Expecting that someone will bite here, someone else will bite here. I mean, this nostalgia is one of the bites only. I would like to give you as an example because it is aiming at, so to say, humanizing the previous regime. To show, to display to the public, to portray that we can live also better without democracy and outside of the European Union, outside of this alliance. So we could be perfectly fine with some authoritarian regimes as well. So let's leave NATO. But hopefully, I would like to say that the support for NATO increased in Bulgaria for the last year by 3%. It's not spectacular, but this is a steady trend. From this point of view, it's important to be aware of that. Still, we see a major threat because the people that are contesting the role, the positive role of NATO, remain at high levels. But hopefully these that are in favor of the NATO membership are about 3 times more than the others.
Our domestic audiences in all our allied countries. Absolutely. No, thank you very much for this. Let me now turn to an issue that is obviously also related to everything we have discussed now. And let me ask you how you see the way ahead for NATO following the Washington summit, including in terms of the transatlantic relationship.
Okay, I would like just to mention the issue that you referred to. I mean, our domestic audiences. Our domestic audiences, because it is really very important. I mean, all we see the unity of NATO as our main asset, and it depends on the domestic support to NATO, of course. Because if there is not a domestic support, of course, we cannot be united in dealing with the threats. But to your question, the transatlantic relationship is crucial to NATO, and it has ever been. After 75 years of existence and cooperation of this most successful alliance in the human history, as we always say, this year NATO symbolically returned to Washington, where its founding document, the Washington Treaty, was signed initially by 12 founding members, and now they are 32. The increasing by number of our allies is a proof that NATO is doing something fine. I mean, this is an alliance that is attractive for the countries to join, and this is very strong argument in favor of NATO, and this is due a very large scale to our transatlantic bond that remains crucial to us. The 75th anniversary has been an ample opportunity to show the allies' consciousness to mutually share burden and responsibility on the both sides of the Atlantic. The strongest example for our conscience of burden and responsibility sharing has been the growing and the adequate understanding towards increasing significantly our national defense expenses, as well also the declaration pledge of long-term security assistance to Ukraine, because they are shared participation into this, and all the allies know what is their share in all of this. So I think that there is a bigger understanding from this perspective in the alliance about the burden sharing. This is one very substantial part of our transatlantic relations. And this issue, I mean, some people are saying that President Trump is very much insisting on that during his term. But it's not really true, because also President Biden, also President Obama, all of them, they insisted that the burden sharing is a core allied value, and it must be respected and supported. As a modest but notable example, Bulgaria has remarkably increased its defense spending in the last years. Now we are at the level of 2.18% of the GDP, and we intend to sustain this trend in order to implement an ambitious defense investment program until 2032. We aim even at reaching higher percentage of GDP and maintain it in a long run in order to implement a long due and a long awaited by our military forces rearmament and modernization. This is something that Bulgaria is lagging behind, because for decades it was underestimated. Probably the overall security environment in Europe was not very much pushing us to increase the expenses, but still, I think that it proved to be wrong, and we had to be ready for each and every eventuality. The transatlantic relationship can be also seen in the overall allied support to Ukraine. From military strategic perspective, all of us, we are convinced that we must do more and to help this country to prevail. Russia would continue with its aggression in Europe if this not happens. And this is the reason why supporting Ukraine is also our strategic interest. Therefore, all the allies, including on both sides of the Atlantic, are conscious that providing military aid is in the focus and should remain in the focus of our defense policy. This is a best common investment in our security. We implemented many programs here that are reflecting our collective approach. In these troubled times, and many countries are undergoing election processes and so on, the best idea to keep steady priorities, this is to provide common NATO approaches on that, and not to leave everything to national decisions. And here we are also united on the both sides of the Atlantic. And this financial pledge to Ukraine, the 40 billion euro that has been allocated during the Washington summit, they are also part of this approach, because it is a long-term commitment that will be implemented in any eventuality, whatever happens on the both sides of the Atlantic. So I think also that last but not least, we must remain united in maintaining our resilience on both sides also of the Atlantic, facing different problems. We have common priorities regarding our 360 approach. We are more and more engaged into the Indo-Pacific, knowing that this is not, of course, our area of responsibility. It's not covered the Atlantic Treaty, North Atlantic Treaty, but at the same time, the vigilance must be global. NATO is regional, but the vigilance is global, and the problems could come from everywhere. We see this by this deliveries of North Korean missiles to Russia. So we are acting solidarity with our American friends, expressing their solidarity and supporting them in the Indo-Pacific, and developing also the relationships with our partner from this region. I think that the transatlantic bond is stronger than ever. I mean, for the last decades. I don't know how that was, because this is before my time. I mean, during the Cold War. But now I think that we are stronger than we have ever been. If you have asked someone, let's say 15 years ago in Europe, should be Europe powerful global superpower, probably 99% would have said yes. But if you ask them, then the question, are you in favor of massive military investment? Probably 99% would have said no. I think that now this second figure is going up. And we are reaching also the levels that are required by our alliance. This is really very important.
Indeed, it is, increasingly so. You alluded already to it, but let me now turn to Ukraine and Russia's brutal war of aggression against its neighbor, an issue that is, as you so eloquently put forward, that is very much at the forefront of all the discussions at the moment. It was certainly at Washington, and the subject of important decisions taken on that occasion. Now, the question here I would like to pose is, how do the financial and political mechanisms supporting Ukraine's path to join NATO actually influence the security situation in the Black Sea region?
Well, the situation in Ukraine and the security profile of the Black Sea areas are, of course, very much interlinked. I will start answering this question by encompassing the whole negative impact of the Russian aggression against Ukraine over the security situation and the regional order in the Black Sea region and beyond. In its confrontation with the West, Russia attempts to regain its advantage in the Black Sea through military victory in Ukraine. So a victory of Russia in Ukraine will very badly influence the security situation in the Black Sea. The immediate objective, of course, of Russia is to cut Ukraine from the Black Sea coast, to secure the land connections with Crimea, and to establish control over Odessa. Initially, that was the ambition of Russia. Now, I think that they became a bit less ambitious because Ukraine succeeded to push them back. I mean, the Black Sea Fleet is not operating freely as it was. In the first year of the crisis in Ukraine, we have seen situations that have been very challenging to us as well, because Russia declared many times, I mean, it was declaring one after another not-ups for military exercises that have been held in our exclusive economic zone, which impeded the capability of Bulgaria to exercise its prerogatives in this economic zone. In fact, that was not a situation of exercise. That was actually just a blockage of Ukraine, especially when they tried to prevent the grain deal running. The situation is really very much complicated. We have not very many options, as I mentioned initially, to counter this Russian influence, because we cannot increase our maritime presence in the Black Sea. So we are seeking some asymmetric responses, like for instance, increased surveillance and intelligence, ISR, in the Black Sea region. We are trying to increase the capability of the battle group in Bulgaria, also the battle group that is in Romania as well. But these are asymmetric responses. So they must compensate what the Russians can with Russia, the challenges coming from Russia to us. If Russia will succeed, this is not very likely, hopefully at that point, but that will enable Russia to dominate the maritime trade, the energy routes, to undermine very substantially the Ukraine's independence and statehood by cutting the access of Ukraine to the Black Sea, and to diminish the Ukrainian value for the West, for NATO. Russia feels squeezed in the Black Sea after Finland and Sweden joined NATO, and is likely to double down in the Black Sea to offset losses in the Baltic and in the North as a whole. So this is the risk that we see now. Through its war in Ukraine and geopolitical revisionism in the Black Sea, Russia seeks to establish uncontested hegemony and project influence beyond its neighborhood and into the Western Balkans, South Caucasus as well, that are adjacent regions, of course, of the Black Sea, and further to Eastern Mediterranean and probably to the Middle East. If that happens, it will allow Russia to challenge European security from multiple positions, and it will be a very, very dangerous situation. This is why we paid very much attention to the Black Sea. I would like to mention that at the 11th of November last year, our delegation was able to organize the first ever NAC visit to Bulgaria at the level of ambassadors. So it was important because it was, on one hand, a symbolic act showing, and I brought them. I mean, I tried to organize this visit. We brought them to Varna, the port of at the Black Sea, in order to show to the Russians, here is NATO. We are here. Here starts NATO. So don't even try, don't even think to challenge us in this area. It was really very important, although it made the program of the visit very tough because
I can imagine.
internal flight between the airfield servicing the battle group and Varna. It was an internal flight. Anyway, so the Black Sea region, as all we see, represents an extremely complex and complicated security environment. And Russia's war against Ukraine remains the biggest threat to the regional peace and security. According to the assessment in purely military categories, a more stable security in Ukraine, vice versa, depends largely on strengthening Ukraine's deterrent capabilities and neutralizing Russia's military infrastructure and ground lines of communications in Crimea. So if Ukraine prevails, all successes in Ukraine are improving from our point of view the security environment in the Black Sea region. If the Kremlin can supply and use Crimea as a platform to prosecute its war threaten attacks and disrupt the region, the Black Sea region will not resemble at all and its pre-2014 state. Now the situation is very difficult. It will never be the same as it was 10 years ago. To limit Russia's ability to achieve its objective, the West and particularly NATO should bolster Ukraine's capacity, including military capability to repel the aggression of Russia and to ensure Russia does not win this war. Well, in light of all that has been mentioned and with the understanding that investments in Ukraine are in fact investments are in our security, NATO has started already upon Russia's illegal and illegitimate annexation of Crimea to assist Ukraine in reforming its armed forces and defense institutions. The next step has been achieved in Washington with this, but before that, we provided already training to tens of thousands of Ukrainian troops. Since 2016, NATO support has been organized through the CAP, through the Comprehensive Assistance Package, which includes a wide range of capacity building programs, trust funds focused on key areas like cyber defense, logistics, and countering hybrid warfare. Allied leaders agreed to strengthen the CAP at the Madrid summit and the multi-year assistance program at the 23 Vilnius summit as well. Since Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022, NATO is helping Ukraine by coordinating all Ukraine's requests for assistance and supporting allies in the delivery of humanitarian and non-lethal aid. Moreover, NATO allies account for 99% of all military aid to Ukraine, which is Ukraine should not have been able to stand against Russia if NATO aid was not of this magnitude. Of course, we can do more. We need to do more. So at the Washington summit, we launched security assistance and training to Ukraine, the NSATU, which must be a kind of umbrella initiative encompassing all the areas and work strands to assist Ukraine. And this is why this is a no-fail mission to us. We must make NSATU working, and that should be in a very short term. If not this month, the next month, the month of November, it should be fully functional. So this effort will be headquartered, as probably your students know, in Wiesbaden in Germany, with logistics hubs in the eastern flank involving more than 700 personnel. This is a substantial effort, by the way. That will not make NATO a party of the conflict. That must be, of course, repeated, but it will enhance our support to Ukraine's self-defense. Also, we agreed in Washington for a long-term financial commitment for Ukraine by sharing this burden equitably, as I mentioned, because this is very important to be said once again. And in addition, allies will build a bridge to membership to Ukraine. That is also a very important work strand by aligning Ukraine's defense and security sectors with NATO standards. So we consider the Washington summit as a bridge to Ukraine, a bridge to Ukraine's membership, and NSATU is a tool from that perspective. All of this is making a difference on the battlefield every day, helping Ukraine to uphold its right of self-defense and indirectly providing for an improved security environment in the wider Black Sea region, as you intended to connect these two things in your question.
Well, thank you very, very much indeed. Really, really fascinating. And I think you have already anticipated the next question I wanted to ask, namely, what more could be done when we look at NATO's southeastern flank more generally. If you care to add anything to this, or we move to the next question.
What could be done on the southeastern flank? First of all, that should be a continuing contribution to NATO's core task to deter and to defend Allied territory, every inch of the Allied territory, against a potential invasion. NATO's ability to provide collective defense will depend on the extent to which allies see themselves as at risk of harm from Russia's aggression. And Russia is already carrying out hybrid activities and cyber attacks of NATO. I mean, some allies say that in some domains we are in direct confrontation with Russia. This is in the cyber domain and also the hybrid domain. In Washington, NATO allies recognize the necessity to further prioritize their defense and to take the next necessary steps for ensuring collective defense by increasing defense production, positioning military equipment and troops on the eastern flank, conducting exercises to show that plans are not just a paper, but executable, and increasing the volume and the speed of responses to any possible fields of aggression. These are expensive steps, and we must take care about this. They will require a lot of political will. It is about more investments in capabilities, sufficient amount of weaponry and ammunition, tanks, ships, airplanes, drones, air defense systems, and troops to make Russia understand that there are no feasible wins against NATO. So these are our tasks, and we welcome strongly the substantive outcomes at the Washington summit in terms of further strengthening deterrence and defense of all allies in the eastern flank, and our continued political and practical support to Ukraine that goes hand in hand, as it has been seen. So we need to maintain on the eastern flank our level of ambition to build on the Madrid and Vilnius decisions to ensure that the new set of DDA family of plans that we have for the first time are really executable, and that should be made in a short term of time. We fully share also the need to increase our defense expenditures, as it was mentioned. This is something that is very much valid, in particular on our eastern flank. I'm glad to tell you that Romania, Bulgaria, Turkey, North Macedonia, we are already implementing. I mean, most of the countries from the region are reached already this target. It is important, as I mentioned, also to continue working on the infrastructure because it affects directly the capabilities of our eastern flank to detend and to defend and to deter. From this point of view, I would like also to point out once again that without delay, we must continue to renew NATO's presence in the Black Sea. This is also very important, and this is mostly a political task because we have the opportunities, we have the capacities, but there is a lack of political will and certain differences in our views about how to tackle situation are the obstacles to that.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me widen the aperture for a moment, if I may. And you have alluded to it already. The Washington summit also addressed global challenges that affect Euro-Atlantic security and stability, and what that means for our partnerships with like-minded nations across the globe, including and perhaps in particular in the Indo-Pacific. What are, in your view, the opportunities and challenges with respect to a deepened NATO relationship with the Indo-Pacific?
Okay, so building upon what has been said about the need of 360 degrees approach and global character of the threats in today's interconnected world, we must be vigilant very much in the Indo-Pacific as well. To guarantee the security in the Euro-Atlantic zone, NATO should assess and address possible risks that can directly impact the security of our region wherever they come from. And this is where the relations with our partners, very much like-minded countries in the Indo-Pacific and in other regions also around the globe, come into play. That's a priority to us. Especially with the Indo-Pacific partners, allies share common values, and this is a good ground for building the cooperation. It enables us to deepen our cooperation even further. I think that we have not reached the ceiling of what we can do together. Following the summit in Washington and the decisions taken there, we identified some flagship projects with our partners from this region. And these are support to Ukraine because they also are conscious that problems in Ukraine are affecting their region in a way. In the Washington documents has been said that China is the biggest enabler of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. And this is something that they consider really very seriously this point of view. But apart from Ukraine as a flagship project, we have to mention the cyber defense, hybrid threats such as disinformation, the new technologies. This is something that they are very good, and we have to work with them in order not to lose our technological edge. This is very important to NATO in the present circumstances. A specific area of these new technologies, this is the artificial intelligence, of course. This is something also that they can contribute a lot to. And that could be the main, cornerstones that will channel our partnership with this country with concrete common actions that will be beneficial for the peace, both in the Euro-Atlantic area and also in the Indo-Pacific. For Bulgaria, these decisions were welcome, and this is a big opportunity to deepen the relations with the most technologically advanced partners who have stepped up in their support to Ukraine in their just fight against the Russian aggressor. Regarding the probable risks, I think that it must be underlined first that these partnerships are not directed against a specific country. We don't see China, for instance, as an adversary, not at all. So this is a challenger, but this is also a country we cooperate on. And we must have this in mind and the countries from the region, from the Indo-Pacific, they also don't see China as an adversary. But we must be vigilant. We must analyze and assess the security environment and some revisionist agendas that they can pursue. So NATO promotes all in all a positive agenda in the region and is open for constructive engagement with China on topics in mutual interest, like, for instance, the climate change and among many others. But this constructive approach is, however, a two-way street, and we are hoping that a routine dialogue can be established, which in turn we believe can prove beneficial for both sides. But we need also a positive will on China's side. In addition to that, I would like also to stress that the UN Charter and its provisions, because these days the UN General Assembly session took place in New York, and this is a topical issue. The provisions of the UN Charter for sovereignty and territorial integrity of each country remain a cornerstone of international law that needs to be respected. For this matter, we call upon China as a permanent Security Council member to condemn the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine, something that they did not make so far. And as I mentioned, they are mostly an enabler of the Russian military effort in Ukraine, rather than being a factor that is constructively stopping Russia from this in this war. So the world needs now really just a long-lasting peace, especially in Europe, and China could demonstrate its leadership in achieving this as a permanent member of the Security Council.
Thank you very much indeed for this. Ambassador, I think I would be remiss not to give you the opportunity to reflect on Bulgaria's 20 years in NATO as well. This is obviously an important milestone for your country and the alliance as a whole, as we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of NATO.
Well, we joined the alliance 20 years ago. It was a completely different security environment then. So some people said that the end of history came and a massive war in Europe is not possible any longer. So we must give up with deterrence and defense as our core task. We have to concentrate on missions abroad. And even to some extent, many countries have seen their military posture in that way, by not making substantial acquisition, by not training a full-fledged war, and just fighting the terrorism in remote places like Afghanistan and Iraq. At that time, these voices became dominant, and that was the overall political and narrative environment in Europe. So when Bulgaria joined NATO, it was a different situation. It was perceived like joining a club of like-minded countries mostly that doesn't require probably substantial military effort. We just must, we must adjust our military for some interoperability, and that would be probably the end. That was perceived also as a cashing of the dividends from the Cold War. We won the Cold War. I want to be clear here. We won the Cold War because we regain our sovereignty, we regain our freedom. I don't agree. I have never agreed with the formula that we lost the Cold War. I think that we are the the biggest winners from the Cold War from that point of view. And so it was a kind of, cashing the dividends that are coming with the end of the Cold War. So we are a part of the West, we belong there, and that's almost everything. But now the situation changed a little bit. In the second decade of our membership, it became clear that the classical threats for the security in Europe and for Bulgaria also they didn't disappear. They are not disappeared. They re-emerge, and now there are different decisions to be taken by the politicians. So now the situation is completely different. It is difficult to compare with the situation 20 years ago. So in Bulgaria, we work to overcome these challenges of the present time by adjusting our military doctrines, by military spending, by reforming our armed forces, increasing their capabilities, and first and foremost, by increasing the support to NATO against a cruel hybrid campaign against us that is meant to provide some internal divisions and to be, of course, to continue, Bulgaria to continue to be a reliable and trustworthy member of this alliance. So this is how I see this evolution of the situation.
Thank you very much indeed. Unfortunately, we have to come to a close. So allow me just to pose a last question. As our audience knows, former Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has left office earlier this week. And I also would like to use the opportunity to say that we all owe him a great deal for his masterful leadership and untiring service to our alliance. But he was obviously also part of your country's journey over the last 10 years. Now, Mark Rutte has taken over at the helm of the organization, and one of his first visits took him to Kiev, by the way. Very, very interesting. He has taken over at the helm of the organization. Could you perhaps comment on both, including any expectations when it comes to the way ahead?
Well, before I answer your questions about Mark Rutte, about our new Secretary General, let me first express the Bulgaria gratitude for the outstanding 10-year-long leadership of Jens Stoltenberg, who led us through turbulent times with great determination and a right set of priorities to enhance our deterrence and defense capabilities, to support Ukraine until they prevail in this war of aggression. And I think that the alliance that Stoltenberg saw in 2014 is completely different from the alliance he lives now. And this is, if the alliance is now stronger and fit for purpose, to a large extent, this is a merit of Jens Stoltenberg. And I think that there are big shoes to fill for Mark Rutte. Coming to Mark Rutte, I would like to tell that Bulgaria supported Rutte, of course, in his bid for becoming Secretary General of our alliance, because he is very experienced. He has led his country for 14 years already, which is probably the longest serving prime minister now in Europe, in the democratic countries from Western Europe. And at the same time, he is a bridge builder. he has never imposed his views. I know him mostly from the European Union and not from NATO, but also his participation in NATO at NATO summits proved to be also very active and productive. So this extensive experience, strong transatlantic profile, I think will build upon this legacy in the future and steer the alliance further into strengthening our deterrence and defense posture that is more important, and also to continue the support to Ukraine. Actually, these two priorities has been mentioned by him at the very beginning of his tenure here, the very first day. He added one third priority, also developing the partnerships, because he is very knowledgeable of what these partnerships mean to NATO and how crucial is the South and also the Far East, the Indo-Pacific, for the success of our mission here in Europe. So lastly, I would like to say that as we celebrate 75 years of NATO and already 20 years in the alliance, we have in Bulgaria a whole generation of diplomats and military that dealt all this time with NATO. So all their professional path is linked to NATO, and they have really awesome special knowledge about what NATO is, what are the priorities, how we can contribute, how we can produce added value for the alliance. So how to inscribe Bulgaria into NATO and how to bring more NATO to Bulgaria. So this is why we would like to see from the present Secretary General also a commitment for more diverse and equitable geographical representation, including at senior levels. So we will see how that will unfold, of course, in the days to come. So far, I think that the signals that come from Mark Rutte are very positive. He is very, really careful. He is really very paying much attention on each and every ambassador, each and every nation, because the ambassador is staying here for his or her nation. And I think that these are really very positive signals that will be developing in the days to come. So I'm very optimistic about Mark Rutte, and I stated during my first interaction in the fact that he can count on the support of this delegation every time and for everything.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Milkov. It has been truly fascinating to hear from you today, and we are most grateful to you for sharing your insights and perspectives. And let me thank you, if I may, for the important work you do at NATO and for our alliance. Thank you so very much. And I would also like to thank to all our listeners. Please stay tuned for the next episodes as we will continue to explore the alliance's future with senior leaders and officials from NATO and allied and partner countries. Until the next time, goodbye from me, Fritz Rademacher.
Thank you for joining us on Strategically Speaking, presented by the George C. Marshall European Center for Strategic Studies. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the George C. Marshall Center, the U.S. Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. We hope today's episode provided valuable insights into NATO's role in today's world. For more content, visit our website at www.marshallcenter.org. Join us next time for more on the unfolding story of NATO.